I'm meteorologist Alex Calamia with an update on Tropical Storm Elsa. This is as of the 8 o'clock in the morning advisory from the National Hurricane Center. We're not seeing much change in the advisory itself, but look at the satellite imagery. Do you see that big plume of thunderstorm activity this morning right by the center? Well, that is an indication that this storm is trying to get its act together. But notice the western half of this storm is totally bare of convection, of thunderstorm activity. And so this is a very east-heavy storm, and that's due to wind shear. So all of the rain associated with this storm is going to move into Florida. That's the bad news, even before landfall. The good news is that because of this wind shear, we're seeing all of the thunderstorms get displaced from the western half of the center of circulation. That means not a lot of additional strengthening, but there is the possibility that this storm could get close to hurricane strength as it approaches north central Florida's coastline for very early Wednesday morning. In the meantime, expect gradual strengthening. 65-mile-per-hour winds will likely return by the time we get to Tuesday afternoon. Then as we head into the overnight hours, that rain will move into North Florida, South Georgia for early Wednesday morning, likely making landfall near Cedar Key, somewhere between the Big Bend and north of Tampa Bay. Landfall not going to be a huge issue, especially considering that all of the impacts are mainly east of that center of circulation, but we'll likely see some of this rain wrap around to the western half as well, especially if the storm does manage to get its act together. The center of circulation moves right into South Carolina overnight on Wednesday into Thursday, so at this point it's lost most of its wind, but the rain is still there and the wind will likely be displaced from the center. So we're not going to be seeing 35-mile-per-hour winds at the center for overnight Wednesday and Thursday. It's all going to be coastal, so the coastal wind threat is going to be there for South Carolina. In the meantime, let's talk rain threat. The Weather Prediction Center gives a pretty decent opportunity for excessive rainfall, which is saying a lot in Florida because it does take a lot of rain to produce localized flooding, but we are expecting that potential from north central Florida all the way down the west coast into South Florida for today. Then tomorrow, that threat moves mainly into the low country. You can see that moderate risk for excessive rainfall in areas like Charleston and Hilton Head and Savannah, and that's going to move into the area Wednesday afternoon and into the overnight for Thursday morning. And that will also be an issue for the eastern half of the Midlands. We could see that possibility for flash flooding, but that risk certainly reduces as we head into the upstate and the western Midlands. But there is still a chance there in the western Midlands for some excessive rainfall. So let's go through a couple of models. GFS showing some pretty random rainfall totals, a hit or miss isolated 1-inch plus rain, most of us getting less than that in the Midlands. European model, that goes in much stronger with this storm and it shifts the track just a little bit westward, and that would be because of that additional strength on landfall. So we do have to see how Elsa builds and grows today because it will have an impact depending on how strong it is at landfall in Florida, what it looks like, where it's heading as it moves into South Carolina, because there is that possibility that it comes in a little bit hotter, it brings in a little bit more of that rainfall because of that additional strength if it moves westward. I think it's going to be something in between this. I see the I-95 corridor as the main bullseye for the 1-inch plus rainfall rates, and then you see gradually less and very little as you head into the western Midlands. This is our in-house model. I think it's going to give you the most accurate depiction of how things look as we head into Wednesday evening and Thursday morning for us here in South Carolina. Of course, wind is always what you talk about when it comes to tropical systems, and it is going to be quite breezy in Fort Myers. 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts that can do some damage. Then moving into the Tampa metro area, we're talking 30-plus-mile-per-hour winds. Not quite as big of an issue in places like Orlando, but up and down the East Coast, some of those winds will be gusty as well. So as we head into Wednesday morning, the 30-mile-per-hour wind gusts in north central Florida and even in North Florida right along the first coast, that's where we're going to still be seeing some potentially 30-mile-per-hour winds gusting at times higher than that as well. Then this moves into our area here in South Carolina. So winds gusting up to 40 miles per hour in Savannah, then gusting up to 40 miles per hour towards Charleston and Myrtle Beach as we head into the overnight hours of Wednesday and Thursday. So with the winds, we have certain advisories being prompted from the National Hurricane Center, including hurricane watches from Steinhatchee to the Tampa Bay. So that means hurricane conditions are possible, 74 mile per hour plus winds, and it just depends on whether or not Elsa manages to reach hurricane status. Otherwise, tropical storm warnings are in effect up and down the entire western Gulf Coast of Florida. So that means that we are expecting some tropical storm force winds there, 39 mile per hour plus. Tropical storm winds are possible as well for the coastal parts of South Carolina. Right now that extends into Charleston and Hilton Head. We'll likely see that extend as well into the Myrtle Beach area, but it's still a little bit early for those tropical storm watches to be in effect there. So here in the Midlands, basic bullet points to keep in mind. Wednesday late afternoon into the early late in the morning into the early afternoon, rather, we've got some passing shower or storm chances. So that's your Wednesday. Then as we head into the overnight hours on Wednesday, that's going to be the bulk of Elsa's rain. Looks like the eastern Midlands is the bullseye for it, as well as the coastal parts of the state, but subtle shifts in a track could change that. It looks like the western Midlands gets out of most of the heavy rain impacts from Elsa, but behind this storm, it's going to be super muggy, so we still have good chances of rain as we head into Thursday afternoon. It just won't be from Elsa. On the coast, in addition to the heavy rain, we also have rough surf that starts today and continues really through the middle of the week, and 40 mile per hour wind gusts, which are going to help elevate that rough surf. Of course, we'll keep an eye on it for you, give you another update in a bit. In the meantime, I'm meteorologist Alex Calamia.